Chapter 1: The Silent Language of Excellence. Throughout human history, people have searched for ways to prove their worth. Some use words. They explain their intelligence. They announce their ambitions. They tell the world what they are capable of becoming. They ask people to believe in their potential. But there is another group of people who take a different path. They do not spend their lives explaining what they can do. They develop themselves until their ability becomes impossible to ignore. The musician does not need to explain that they understand music. The performance reveals it. The scientist does not need to repeatedly announce their intelligence. The discovery reveals it. The athlete does not need to convince people that they are exceptional. The results reveal it. The artist does not need to describe their creativity. The creation reveals it. This is one of the oldest truths about human achievement. When ability reaches a certain level, words become unnecessary. The work begins speaking. Every generation produces people who seem to possess something different. When they perform, people notice. When they create, people pay attention. When they solve problems, people remember their names. They are not always the loudest. They are not always the ones demanding recognition. Often, they are the opposite. They are focused on the craft itself. They understand something that many people never learn. The strongest argument a person can make is not what they say about themselves. It is what they have developed themselves to become. Consider the difference between claiming greatness and demonstrating greatness. Anyone can say, "I am talented." Anyone can say, "I have potential." Anyone can say, "I am better than others." But these statements have no weight without evidence. The world eventually asks a simple question: show me. Not because people are cruel, but because reality requires proof. A person can claim to be a great builder, but the structure they create reveals their ability. A person can claim to be a great leader, but the people they influence reveal their leadership. A person can claim to be a great thinker, but the ideas they produce reveal their intelligence. Reality has a way of separating claims from truth. This principle appears everywhere. In sports, the scoreboard speaks. In science, evidence speaks. In business, results speak. In art, creativity speaks. In leadership, consequences speak. The language of excellence is universal. It does not require translation. One of the clearest examples of this principle can be seen in the world of football. A player does not become legendary because they constantly announce their greatness. They become legendary because, when the moment arrives, they do something others cannot do. When Lionel Messi controls a football, the argument changes. People may debate rankings. They may debate eras. They may debate who is the greatest. But the ability itself creates the conversation, the movement, the vision, the decision-making, the creativity, the consistency. These things communicate without a speech. His talent does not need a microphone. It has its own voice. But this principle goes beyond football. Imagine listening to a great musician. Before they play, they could spend an hour explaining their dedication, their creativity, and their understanding of music. But once the performance begins, all explanations become unnecessary. The music itself becomes the proof. The same applies to a great writer. A writer does not need to repeatedly announce, "I am a powerful storyteller." The reader discovers it through the words. A great scientist does not need to say, "I have changed the world." The discovery itself demonstrates the impact. This idea connects deeply with the philosophy of mastery. Robert Greene, in his work on mastery, explains that exceptional individuals often go through a long period of preparation before recognition arrives. The world sees the final achievement. It rarely sees the years of development behind it. People see the musician on stage. They do not see the thousands of hours practicing alone. People see the champion holding a trophy. They do not see the years of failure and discipline. People see the successful entrepreneur. They do not see the countless mistakes, lessons, and sacrifices. The final performance is visible. The preparation is hidden. This creates one of the greatest illusions about talent. People often believe greatness appears suddenly. They look at someone extraordinary and think, they were just born different. But history reveals another truth. Behind almost every great person is a story of transformation. A person starts with a possibility. Then they develop it. They struggle, they improve, they fail, they adapt. Eventually, their ability becomes so refined that the world sees only the result. Aristotle understood this thousands of years ago when he argued that excellence is not a single action. It is a habit. A person does not become excellent by performing one great act. They become excellent through repeated actions that shape who they are. A single performance may impress people. A lifetime of excellence creates greatness. This explains why true masters often appear calm. They do not need constant validation. Their confidence comes from evidence. They have tested themselves. They have failed. They have improved. They know what they can do because they have built the ability themselves. The beginner often seeks attention. The master seeks improvement. The beginner asks, "Do people recognize me? Am I getting better?" This does not mean words are meaningless. Words matter. Ideas matter. Communication matters. Many great people used powerful words to inspire others, but words become far more powerful when supported by ability. A speech from someone who has never faced difficulty carries a different weight from a speech from someone who has lived through struggle. Advice from someone who has never achieved something carries a different weight from advice from someone who has mastered it. Experience gives words power. Achievement gives words authority. The world has always respected demonstrated ability. Ancient societies respected skilled warriors. Communities respected master craftsmen. Scientists respected those who expanded knowledge. Modern societies respect innovators, creators, and performers who produce extraordinary results. The principle remains unchanged. Competence creates credibility. But perhaps the most important lesson is personal. Many people spend too much time trying to convince others of their value. They explain their dreams. They defend themselves. They argue about their potential. But the greatest people often choose another path. They invest their energy into becoming better. They understand. You do not have to announce the tree when the fruit appears. You do not have to explain the fire when people can see the light. You do not have to defend excellence when excellence is visible. The journey of greatness begins silently, before the applause, before recognition, before the world notices. There is only a person and their craft, a person making a choice. Will I spend my life explaining what I could become, or will I spend my life becoming something that cannot be ignored? Because eventually, every person faces the same truth. Your words introduce you, but your ability defines you. And when your talent is developed into mastery, your work will speak for you. Chapter 2, Born with Potential. The mystery of natural talent. Every extraordinary person begins with something invisible. A possibility, a capacity, a unique combination of abilities, interests, and tendencies that may one day become something remarkable. Before the world sees greatness, there is only potential. A child holding a football. A child playing a piano, a child drawing pictures, a child asking questions about the universe. At that moment, nobody knows what that ability will become, because talent begins quietly. It does not arrive with a certificate. It does not announce, "I will become one of the greatest." It appears as curiosity, a fascination, a strange attraction towards something that feels natural. Throughout history, humans have debated one of the greatest questions about achievement. Are great people born, or are they created? Are exceptional individuals simply born with gifts that separate them from everyone else? Or can ordinary people develop extraordinary abilities through effort and training? For centuries, people have argued both sides. Some believe greatness comes from natural talent. Others believe greatness comes from hard work. But the deeper truth is more complicated. Greatness is rarely created by one thing alone. It is usually the result of a powerful combination: natural ability, opportunity, environment, discipline, and deliberate development. The mistake many people make is believing talent and effort are opposites. They imagine there are two groups of people, the naturally gifted and everyone else. But human excellence does not work that way. A person may begin with advantages. Another person may begin with disadvantages. But what determines the final outcome is often what happens after the starting point. A seed may contain the potential to become a great tree, but without water, sunlight, and the right conditions, the potential remains hidden. Human talent works the same way. Consider the story of Mozart. Mozart is often presented as the ultimate example of natural genius. People look at his childhood abilities and think he was simply born different, and there is truth in that. Mozart possessed extraordinary musical ability from a very young age. But the complete story is deeper. He was born into an environment where music surrounded him. His father, Leopold Mozart, was an accomplished musician and teacher. From childhood, Mozart was exposed to musical training, performance, composition, constant feedback. His ability was developed every day. The world remembers the genius. But behind the genius was an environment designed to cultivate that ability. This reveals an important principle. Talent needs a place to grow. A person can possess great ability, but if they never encounter the right environment, their potential may remain hidden. Many talented people are never discovered because their circumstances never allow their abilities to develop. Some never meet a mentor. Some never receive encouragement. Some never get the opportunity to practice. Some never even realize what they are capable of. The same principle appears in sports. When people look at Lionel Messi, they see something extraordinary. They see creativity. They see intelligence. They see abilities that appear almost impossible. But behind those moments is a lifetime of development. A child may have natural coordination, but becoming one of the greatest footballers in history requires thousands of hours of practice, coaching, competition, learning, adaptation. Natural talent created the possibility. Development created the legend. This is where the research of Anders Ericsson becomes important. Ericsson studied expert performers across different fields. His research challenged the idea that world-class ability is simply a gift. He discovered that exceptional performers usually share something. They engage in deliberate practice. They do not simply repeat what they already know. They focus on improving what they cannot yet do. They search for weaknesses. They receive feedback. They push beyond comfort. They constantly refine themselves. This explains something fascinating. A beginner and a master may spend the same amount of time practicing, but they are not doing the same thing. The beginner repeats, the master improves. The beginner seeks comfort, the master seeks growth. The beginner protects their ego, the master challenges their limitations. However, we must also acknowledge something important. Not everyone starts from the same place. Human beings are different. Some people naturally possess advantages. Some have exceptional memory. Some have unusual physical abilities. Some have extraordinary creativity. Some have incredible emotional intelligence. Ignoring these differences would be unrealistic, but believing that natural ability alone creates greatness is equally wrong. A gift without development is only potential. This is why some talented people disappear. They confuse potential with achievement. They believe, because I am gifted, success will come. But the world does not reward what someone could have become. The world rewards what someone actually develops. A talented person who stops improving can be surpassed by someone with less natural ability but greater discipline. Carol Dweck's research on mindset explains this difference. Some people have a fixed mindset. They believe ability is something you either have or do not have. When they fail, they think, maybe I am not talented enough. Others have a growth mindset. They believe ability can be developed. When they fail, they think, what can I learn from this? This small difference in thinking can completely change a person's future. The greatest performers throughout history share one belief. They are never finished. They are always students. The athlete who wins the championship still trains. The scientist who makes a discovery still asks questions. The artist who creates a masterpiece still learns. The master remains a beginner in the search for improvement. The purpose of discovering talent is not to make someone feel special. It is to create responsibility. If you discover that you have an ability, the question is no longer, am I gifted? The question becomes, what am I going to do with this gift? Because talent is not the final achievement. It is an invitation. The world is filled with people who have potential, but potential alone does not change history. History is changed by people who take what they were given and develop it into something extraordinary. The difference between a hidden talent and a recognized talent is not always the gift itself. Sometimes it is simply the courage to develop it, because every masterpiece begins the same way, not as greatness, but as potential waiting to be transformed. Chapter 3: The Hidden Years Nobody Sees. The price before recognition. The world has a fascination with visible success. We admire the final moment, the athlete lifting the trophy, the musician standing before thousands of people, the entrepreneur announcing a successful company, the scientist receiving recognition for a discovery. We see the result, but we rarely see the years that created it. Behind every visible achievement is an invisible story, a story of preparation, a story of failure, a story of repetition, a story of moments when nobody was watching. This is the hidden chapter of greatness. One of the greatest illusions about talent is that exceptional people become exceptional suddenly. People see the finished product and assume the journey was easy. They see a great musician and think, they were born with a gift. They see a successful entrepreneur and think, they were lucky. They see a champion athlete and think, they were naturally better. But history reveals something different. Greatness usually develops in silence long before it receives attention. Robert Greene describes this period as the apprenticeship phase. Before a person becomes a master, they must first become a student. They must accept being unknown. They must accept making mistakes. They must accept being corrected. They must accept that improvement comes slowly. This is difficult because humans naturally desire recognition. We want the reward before we have earned the ability. But mastery requires patience. Think about a musician learning an instrument. The audience sees the perfect performance, the confidence, the emotion. But the audience does not see the first painful attempts, the wrong notes, the hours of repetition, the frustration, the moments when quitting seemed easier. The final performance is only the visible part of the journey. The same principle applies to athletes. When people watch a world-class player, they often see natural ability. But elite performance is built through thousands of small decisions repeated over years. A footballer improves through practicing basic movements, studying the game, correcting weaknesses, learning from mistakes. A basketball player improves through shooting when nobody is watching, studying opponents, developing discipline. A runner improves through uncomfortable training sessions, physical pain, mental endurance. The world sees the extraordinary moment. The athlete remembers the ordinary days that created it. Michael Jordan provides one of the greatest examples. People remember championships, legendary performances, moments of greatness. But before becoming one of the greatest basketball players in history, Jordan experienced rejection. He was not always considered the best. He faced failure. He had weaknesses. The difference was not that he never struggled. The difference was that he used struggle as fuel. Instead of asking, "Why am I not already great?" he asked, "What must I improve?" This is one of the characteristics that separates exceptional people. They are willing to remain students. Many people stop growing once they receive praise. They become attached to the identity of being talented. But masters are different. They are less interested in protecting their image and more interested in improving their ability. The hidden years are difficult because they often feel meaningless. A person practices for months and sees little progress. A writer creates pages nobody reads. A business owner works while nobody notices. A scientist experiments repeatedly without success. During this period, doubt appears. The person begins asking, is this worth it? Will anyone ever recognize me? Am I wasting my time? This is where many talented people quit. Not because they lack ability, but because they cannot endure the process. Angela Duckworth's research on grit explains this important difference. Talent may create an initial advantage, but long-term commitment often determines who reaches the highest level. Grit is the ability to continue pursuing a meaningful goal despite obstacles. It is the ability to continue when motivation disappears, because motivation is temporary. Discipline creates consistency. The hidden years also reveal character. When nobody is watching, who are you? Do you continue improving? Do you continue learning? Do you continue practicing? Or do you only work when recognition is available? This question separates professionals from amateurs. Stephen Pressfield describes this difference through the idea of professionalism. The amateur waits for inspiration. The professional shows up. The amateur works when conditions are perfect. The professional works regardless. The amateur seeks approval. The professional seeks excellence. Consider the greatest creators in history. Leonardo da Vinci filled thousands of pages with observations and ideas. He studied constantly. He experimented constantly. His curiosity never stopped. Einstein spent years thinking about problems that others could not solve. Beethoven continued creating despite enormous personal challenges. Their greatness was not created in the spotlight. It was created in private. The hidden years teach us an uncomfortable truth. The world often celebrates the person after the struggle, not during it. People congratulate the successful person, but they rarely see the sacrifice that produced success. They admire the achievement. They rarely understand the cost. This is why comparison can be dangerous. People compare their beginning to someone else's finished product. They see another person's success and think they are naturally gifted, but they do not see the years behind that success. They compare their first chapter to someone else's final chapter. Every great person has a hidden story. Behind every masterpiece is practice. Behind every achievement is failure. Behind every confident performance is preparation. Behind every expert is a beginner who refused to quit. The hidden years are where talent is transformed. Potential becomes ability. Ability becomes skill. Skill becomes mastery, and mastery eventually becomes visible. The world sees the finished work, but greatness is built long before anyone is watching. Because the greatest question is not, can you perform when everyone is looking? The greater question is, will you continue building yourself when nobody is watching? Because those invisible years are not a delay before greatness. They are the process that creates it. Chapter 4, From Talent to Mastery. The transformation that creates greatness. Talent is the beginning of the journey. It is not the destination. A person may possess natural ability, intelligence, creativity, or exceptional instincts, but talent alone is incomplete. The world is filled with people who had potential. Some became masters. Others remained only talented. The difference between them was transformation. They took what they had and developed it until it became extraordinary. This is the journey from talent to mastery. A seed and a tree provide the perfect analogy. A seed contains the possibility of becoming a great tree, but nobody looks at a seed and sees the final result. The tree requires time, conditions, nourishment, protection, continuous growth. Human ability works the same way. Talent is the seed. Practice is the nourishment. Discipline is the protection. Mastery is the final expression. Robert Greene's work on mastery explains that almost every exceptional person follows a similar path. The journey begins with attraction. A person feels naturally drawn towards something. They are curious. They want to understand it. They enjoy exploring it. Then comes apprenticeship. They become students. They learn from others. They develop fundamentals. They make mistakes. They slowly build competence. Eventually, after years of development, they begin creating something unique. They move from copying to creating. From student to master. The first stage. Learning the fundamentals. Every master begins as a beginner. This is one of the hardest realities for people to accept. People want advanced results without respecting basic foundations. But greatness is built from fundamentals. A great footballer masters movement control, positioning, decision-making. A great musician masters rhythm, technique, timing, expression. A great scientist masters mathematics, observation, research methods. A great entrepreneur masters understanding customers, solving problems, managing resources. The basics are not limitations. They are the foundation. Many people become frustrated during this stage because progress appears slow. They think, I am not improving. But beneath the surface, something important is happening. The brain is building connections. The body is developing coordination. The mind is learning patterns. Growth is occurring before results become visible. The second stage, deliberate practice. This is where Ericsson's research becomes important. Ericsson showed that experts are not created simply by spending time on an activity. They improve because they practice intelligently. Deliberate practice requires 1. A specific goal. The person knows what they are trying to improve. Not, I want to get better, but I need to improve this specific weakness. 2. Immediate feedback. Experts constantly measure performance. They ask, what did I do wrong? What can I improve? How can I do this better? Feedback prevents people from repeating mistakes. 3. Discomfort. Growth happens outside the comfort zone. If a person only practices what they already do well, they maintain their current ability. They do not expand it. The master constantly challenges themselves. The third stage, developing intuition. One of the most fascinating things about mastery is that experts often appear to act naturally. Their actions seem effortless. But this effortlessness is created through years of effort. A beginner thinks through every step. A master recognizes patterns. This is why an experienced doctor can identify a problem quickly, why a great chess player sees opportunities instantly. Why an elite athlete reacts before others. The skill has become internalized. Daniel Kahneman explains that expert intuition comes from recognizing patterns built through experience. The expert is not using magic. They are using accumulated knowledge. The thousands of previous experiences have created a mental library. The fourth stage, creating your own voice. The highest level of mastery is not imitation, it is originality. Every beginner copies. Every student follows. But masters eventually develop their own approach. A musician develops a unique sound. An artist develops a unique style. An entrepreneur develops a unique vision. A scientist develops new theories. This is the moment when a person stops simply using knowledge and begins contributing knowledge. Leonardo da Vinci did not become legendary because he copied other artists. He became legendary because he combined art, science, and observation in ways others had not imagined. Beethoven did not become unforgettable because he repeated existing music. He expanded what music could express. Einstein did not change physics by memorizing old ideas. He questioned assumptions and created new understanding. The fifth stage, mastery becomes invisible. The highest level of skill often looks simple. This creates a misunderstanding. People see the master performing and think they make it look easy. But the simplicity is the result of complexity mastered. A great speaker appears natural because they have studied communication. A great athlete appears effortless because they have trained thousands of hours. A great artist appears inspired because they have developed deep skill. The ease is not the absence of work. The ease is the result of work. Why many talented people never reach mastery. Talent often creates confidence, but confidence can become a trap. A naturally gifted person may think, I do not need to work as hard. Meanwhile, someone with less natural ability may continue improving. Years later, the difference becomes obvious. The less gifted but more disciplined person becomes exceptional. This is why greatness is not a competition between talent and hard work. It is the combination. Talent determines where you may start. Effort determines where you can go. The mastery formula, the journey, can be summarized. Talent creates possibility. Practice creates ability. Discipline creates consistency. Experience creates intuition. Creativity creates originality. Mastery creates influence. The world does not remember people because they had potential. It remembers them because they transformed potential into something valuable. A person with talent has a responsibility. They must decide whether their ability will remain hidden or whether they will develop it until it speaks. Because talent whispers, skill communicates, but mastery commands attention. And when mastery speaks, the world listens. Chapter 5: Why Gifted People Fail. The tragedy of wasted potential. Human history is filled with talented people. People with intelligence. People with creativity. People with extraordinary natural abilities. People who seem destined for greatness. But not all talent becomes achievement. Not every gifted person becomes a master. Not every promising beginning becomes a remarkable ending. This reveals one of the most important truths about human potential. Talent is a gift, but it is not a guarantee. A person can possess extraordinary ability and still fail to transform it into greatness. The world often assumes that talented people have an easier journey, but talent creates its own dangers. Sometimes the very thing that gives someone an advantage becomes the reason they stop growing. A naturally gifted person may receive praise early. People tell them, you are special, you are naturally talented, you are better than others. At first, this encouragement is helpful, but over time it can create a dangerous belief. I do not need to work as hard. The danger of relying only on natural ability. A talented person may experience early success without much struggle. Because things come easily, they never develop the habits needed for difficult challenges. Then eventually they encounter something that talent alone cannot overcome. A higher level of competition, a difficult problem, a period of failure, and suddenly they discover something uncomfortable. Their natural ability is not enough. This is why some gifted children struggle later in life. They were rewarded for being naturally good. They were not taught how to struggle. They learned to protect their image instead of developing their ability. Dweck. The fixed mindset trap. Dweck's research explains this through the difference between fixed mindset and growth mindset. A fixed mindset believes, my ability is who I am. A growth mindset believes my ability can be developed. The fixed mindset creates fear. If talent defines your identity, failure becomes dangerous. A mistake does not simply mean, I made an error. It becomes, maybe I am not talented after all. So the person avoids challenges. They avoid situations where they might fail. They choose looking talented over becoming better. The growth mindset sees failure differently. Failure becomes information. A mistake becomes a lesson. A weakness becomes an opportunity. The person does not ask, does this prove I am not good? They ask, what can this teach me? The comfort trap, another enemy of talent, is comfort. Success can become dangerous because it creates satisfaction. A person achieves something and thinks, I have arrived. But greatness requires continuous improvement. The moment a person stops developing is the moment others begin passing them. Many athletes experience this. A young player becomes successful. They receive attention. They receive money. They receive admiration. Then discipline decreases. The ability that made them successful begins to disappear. Talent brought them to the mountain, but discipline was required to stay there. The ego-trapped talent can create pride, and pride can prevent learning. The talented person may believe, I already know, but the master believes there is always more to learn. A person who believes they know everything cannot improve. They reject criticism. They ignore advice. They blame others. Eventually, their ability stops growing. Great people remain students. Leonardo da Vinci remained curious throughout his life. Einstein continued questioning. Warren Buffett continued learning. The greatest minds are often humble because they understand how much they do not know. The failure to develop disciplined talent creates potential. Discipline creates results. Many people wait for motivation, but motivation is unreliable. Some days you feel inspired, some days you do not. Masters understand that progress cannot depend on emotions. They create systems. They practice because it is part of who they are. Newport's concept of deep work explains this modern challenge. In a world full of distractions, the ability to focus deeply has become rare. Many talented people lose their potential because their attention is constantly divided. They never spend enough time developing their craft. The fear of being judged. Some talented people never show their abilities because they fear criticism. They think, what if people dislike my work? What if I fail? What if I am not as good as I believe? So they remain hidden. They protect themselves from failure. But they also protect themselves from growth. Every great person had to expose themselves. Every artist had to show their work. Every entrepreneur had to launch something. Every scientist had to present ideas that could be challenged. Courage is part of mastery. The lack of opportunity talent also requires opportunity. This is an important reality. Some people possess ability but never receive education, resources, mentorship, exposure, support. History is filled with unknown talented people whose circumstances prevented their abilities from being recognized. This reminds us, success is not only about individual ability, it is also influenced by environment. Talent needs a stage. A brilliant performer without an audience may remain invisible. The difference between potential and achievement: potential says, I could. Achievement says, I did. Potential is possibility. Achievement is evidence. The world respects achievement because it represents transformed potential. A person can have a beautiful voice but never practice brilliant ideas, but never create athletic ability, but never train intelligence, but never contribute. Potential without action remains invisible. The greatest waste in human life, the greatest waste is not failure. Failure can teach. The greatest waste is unused ability. A person reaching the end of life knowing, I had something inside me but I never developed it. That is one of the deepest human regrets. The lesson: talent is not something to be proud of. It is something to be responsible for. If you possess ability, you have a choice. You can protect it, or you can develop it. You can talk about it, or you can prove it. You can remain comfortable, or you can grow. The world is not changed by people who had the most potential. It is changed by people who had the courage and discipline to transform potential into contribution. Because talent alone is only a promise. Only mastery fulfills that promise. Chapter 6: The Price Behind Greatness. What exceptional people sacrifice. The world loves the image of greatness. It loves the final result. The champion standing on the podium. The artist receiving applause. The entrepreneur celebrating success. The scientist receiving recognition. But greatness has a hidden cost. Behind every extraordinary achievement is a person who gave something up: time, comfort, security, pleasure, sometimes even the approval of others. The world sees the reward, it rarely sees the sacrifice. One of the biggest misunderstandings about talented people is that their success comes easily. People look at someone exceptional and say, they are naturally gifted, they were lucky, they were born for this. But what they often fail to see is the exchange that took place. Greatness requires a person to trade something ordinary for something extraordinary. The law of trade-offs: every achievement requires choices. A person cannot pursue everything equally. Time spent mastering one thing is time not spent elsewhere. The athlete training early in the morning sacrifices sleep. The entrepreneur building a company sacrifices comfort. The scientist searching for answers sacrifices certainty. The artist creating something meaningful sacrifices convenience. Every great achievement is built from thousands of small choices. The hidden sacrifice of time. Time is the most valuable resource human beings possess. Everyone receives the same 24 hours. The difference is how people use them. Exceptional people understand that mastery requires concentrated time. They spend years doing what others are unwilling to do. While others seek entertainment, they practice. While others seek comfort, they improve. While others seek immediate rewards, they build for the future. This does not mean great people never rest or enjoy life. It means they understand priorities. They know that certain seasons of life require commitment. The sacrifice of comfort. Comfort is one of the greatest enemies of growth. The human mind naturally seeks safety. It prefers familiar situations, easy tasks, predictable outcomes, but improvement happens when people enter difficulty. A musician improves by practicing difficult pieces. An athlete improves by training beyond current limits. A scientist improves by exploring unknown problems. A person cannot become exceptional while avoiding every challenge. Michael Jordan. The cost of excellence. Michael Jordan's career represents this principle. The world remembers championships, famous performances, legendary moments, but greatness was created through ordinary days. Days of training, days of repetition, days of pushing beyond expectations. His competitive spirit was not created during championship games. It was created during countless hours when nobody was watching. Cristiano Ronaldo. Building beyond natural ability. Cristiano Ronaldo provides another example. Regardless of debates about football greatness, his career demonstrates a powerful principle. Talent can be expanded through discipline. His success has been associated with physical preparation, training habits, attention to detail, continuous improvement. He transformed himself from a talented young player into an athlete known for extraordinary longevity. The sacrifice of immediate pleasure. Great people understand delayed gratification. They accept a simple principle. Short-term sacrifice can create long-term freedom. A person learning a skill may sacrifice entertainment today. A person building a business may sacrifice security today. A person pursuing education may sacrifice comfort today. The reward comes later. This connects with Viktor Frankl's ideas about meaning. When a person has a strong enough purpose, they can endure difficulty. A meaningful goal changes how we experience sacrifice. Pain becomes part of the journey rather than a reason to quit. The loneliness of the path. One of the hardest sacrifices is being different from others. When someone seriously pursues mastery, their priorities may no longer match those around them. Friends may not understand. Family may question the journey. Others may choose easier paths. The person pursuing greatness may experience periods of isolation. But many great people experience this. They spent time alone with their craft. They studied, they practiced, they created. The isolation was not punishment, it was preparation. The sacrifice of ego. Perhaps the hardest sacrifice is giving up the need to always look successful. Mastery requires humility. A person must be willing to admit, I do not know, I made a mistake, I need improvement. The ego wants to appear great. The master wants to become great. These are different goals. The pain of failure. Every person pursuing excellence encounters failure. The difference is how they respond. Some people experience failure and stop. Others experience failure and learn. Failure is not the opposite of mastery. It is part of mastery. A musician becomes better by hearing wrong notes. A scientist advances by discovering what does not work. An entrepreneur improves by learning from mistakes. Failure provides information. The danger of loving the result but not the process. Many people want the outcome. They want fame, wealth, recognition, success, but they do not want the process. They want the fruit, but not the planting. They want the championship, but not the training. They want the masterpiece, but not the practice. The greatest people learn to love the process. They find satisfaction in improvement itself. The final lesson: greatness is expensive. It requires payment. The currency is discipline, patience, sacrifice, persistence, humility. The world sees the person at the top. It does not see the mountain they climbed. When people look at extraordinary individuals, they often ask, what makes them different? The answer is not only talent, it is what they were willing to give in exchange for greatness. Because talent may open the door, but sacrifice is what allows a person to walk through it. And mastery is built by those who are willing to pay the price. Chapter 7: When Skill Becomes Identity. The mind of the master. There is a moment in every great person's journey when something changes. The skill that once required enormous effort begins to feel natural. The musician no longer thinks about every note. The athlete no longer calculates every movement. The scientist begins seeing patterns others cannot see. The artist creates with a unique voice. The craft becomes part of who they are. This is the moment when skill becomes identity. This is the psychology of mastery. At the beginning of any journey, there is separation between the person and the skill. A beginner thinks, how do I do this? Every action requires conscious effort. Every decision requires thought. Every mistake feels obvious. But through years of practice, something changes. The skill moves deeper. It becomes internal. The person no longer simply performs the craft. They understand it, they see it, they feel it. This is what separates experts from beginners. A beginner sees individual pieces. A master sees the whole picture. Consider a young football player watching a match. They see players running passes being made, goals being scored, but an elite player sees something different. They see spaces opening before they appear, movements developing before they happen, opportunities hidden from others. The difference is not only physical ability, it is perception. Years of experience have changed how they see the world. The science of expert intuition. Daniel Kahneman studied how experts make decisions. One of the fascinating discoveries about expertise is that experts often appear to make decisions instantly. A firefighter enters a burning building and senses danger. A doctor recognizes symptoms quickly. A chess grandmaster sees the best move. An experienced investor notices patterns. To outsiders, it looks like instinct. But behind this instinct is accumulated knowledge. The expert has built a mental library of experiences. The beginner asks, what should I do? The master recognizes, I have seen this before. Their brain connects the present moment with thousands of previous experiences. The state of flow. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi introduced one of the most important concepts in performance psychology: flow. Flow is a state where a person becomes completely absorbed in an activity. Time feels different, distractions disappear. The person becomes deeply connected with the task. Examples: a musician lost inside a performance, a writer completely absorbed in creating, an athlete performing at the highest level, a scientist deeply focused on solving a problem. In these moments, the person is not fighting the activity, they are connected with it. Flow does not happen randomly. It is usually the result of deep knowledge, challenge, preparation, concentration. A beginner cannot easily enter this state because they lack the foundation. Mastery creates freedom. When excellence looks effortless, one of the biggest misunderstandings about mastery is that people confuse simplicity with ease. They watch a great performer and think, they make it look easy. But what appears effortless is often the result of enormous effort. A great pianist performs naturally because they practice difficult movements thousands of times. A great athlete reacts instantly because they train those reactions repeatedly. A great speaker appears confident because they have studied communication deeply. The ease is not because there was no struggle. The ease is because the struggle happened before. The master's relationship with mistakes. A beginner often sees mistakes as threats. A master sees mistakes as information. This is a major psychological difference. The beginner thinks, I failed. The master thinks, I discovered what needs improvement. Every mistake becomes feedback. Every weakness becomes a target. Every failure becomes part of the learning process. This mindset allows continuous growth. The transition from performer to creator. The highest level of mastery is not simply performing existing skills, it is creating something new. At first, every master learns from others. They study, they copy, they imitate. This is necessary. But eventually, they develop their own expression. A musician develops a unique sound. A painter develops a unique style. A scientist develops new theories. An entrepreneur creates new approaches. The student becomes the creator. Robert Greene explains that mastery eventually leads to creativity because deep understanding allows a person to see possibilities hidden from others. You cannot transform a field you do not understand. Innovation comes after immersion. Why masters often appear humble. There is an interesting relationship between mastery and humility. The more a person learns, the more they realize how much remains unknown. The beginner thinks, I know everything. The master thinks, there is still so much to discover. This is why many great thinkers remained curious throughout their lives. Leonardo da Vinci continued asking questions. Einstein continued exploring. Greatness did not close their minds. It expanded them. The danger of losing the beginner's mind success creates a temptation. I have reached the top. But mastery requires staying open. The moment a person stops learning is the moment decline begins. The world changes. New competitors appear. New ideas emerge. The master must continue adapting. Talent becomes powerful when it becomes natural. The ultimate goal of mastery is not simply performing better. It is reaching a level where the ability becomes part of the person's identity. The painter thinks like an artist. The scientist thinks like a scientist. The athlete thinks like a champion. The craft shapes the person. The deeper lesson people often admire extraordinary individuals and think, they are different from me. But the difference is usually not that they possess some magical quality. The difference is that they spent years developing a relationship with their craft that most people never develop. They went deeper. They practiced longer. They understood more. They transformed ability into identity. Because at the highest level, the athlete does not simply play. They understand the game. The musician does not simply perform. They understand the music. The artist does not simply create. They understand expression. The master does not simply do the work. The master becomes one with the work. And when that happens, the talent no longer needs a voice. It has become the person. Chapter 8. The world eventually notices. When excellence becomes impossible to ignore, for many talented people, recognition does not arrive immediately. There is often a long period where ability exists without attention. A person can be skilled and still be unknown. A person can create something valuable and still be overlooked. A person can possess extraordinary potential and still stand outside the spotlight. This creates one of the most difficult realities of greatness. Excellence and recognition do not always arrive at the same time. History is filled with people who were misunderstood before they were celebrated. Their ability existed before society recognized it. Their work was valuable before the world understood its value. This teaches us an important principle. True excellence does not always receive immediate attention, but exceptional work has a way of creating evidence that eventually demands recognition. Vincent van Gogh, the artist who was discovered too late. Vincent van Gogh is one of history's most famous painters. Today, his works are considered masterpieces. His name represents creativity and artistic brilliance. But during his lifetime, his story was very different. He struggled. He experienced financial difficulties. He received limited recognition. The world did not fully understand the value of his work while he was alive. Yet his paintings carried something powerful. The emotion, the originality, the unique vision. Years later, the world discovered what had always been there. The talent did not appear after his death. The recognition did. Lesson: sometimes the world is slow to recognize greatness, but true value survives time. Nikola Tesla. The challenge of turning genius into impact. Nikola Tesla represents another important lesson. Tesla possessed extraordinary imagination and contributed significantly to electrical engineering. His ideas influenced the modern world. But his life also demonstrates that talent alone does not guarantee recognition or success. A brilliant mind still requires communication, resources, support, practical execution, the ability to bring ideas into reality. A person may have extraordinary ideas, But ideas must enter the world to create impact. Lesson: genius requires a bridge between imagination and reality. Why great work eventually rises. Why do some achievements survive while others disappear? Because excellence creates value. A powerful idea solves problems. A great invention changes possibilities. A masterpiece creates emotion. A remarkable performance creates memories. The work itself becomes a messenger. A person may try to convince people, my creation matters. But if the creation truly has value, it eventually begins speaking independently. Your reputation is built through. Evident reputation is not created by one statement. It is created through repeated proof. A person becomes trusted because people observe patterns. They see consistent quality, reliable performance, meaningful contribution over time. Reputation becomes a record of demonstrated ability. This is why some people can enter a room and immediately receive attention, not because they demand it, because their history enters before they do. Their previous achievements speak for them. The difference between fame and respect. Modern society often confuses fame with greatness, but they are not the same. Fame asks, how many people know your name? Respect asks, why do people value your contribution? A person can become famous through attention, but lasting respect usually requires substance. A viral moment can create popularity. A lifetime of excellence creates legacy. The role of time is one of the greatest judges of talent. Many things appear impressive temporarily, but time reveals what has depth. Trends disappear, genuine contributions remain. A song that is popular for 1 month may disappear. A musical composition that continues inspiring generations demonstrates deeper value. A business idea may create temporary excitement. A company that solves real problems survives. A scientific theory may face criticism, but if it explains reality, it remains. The power of consistency. One great achievement can attract attention, but repeated excellence creates authority. This is why consistency separates talented individuals from legendary ones. Anyone can have one great moment. Few people can maintain excellence for decades. Consider athletes. A single incredible performance is impressive, but maintaining world-class performance year after year requires discipline, adaptation, resilience, continuous improvement. Longevity proves that greatness is real. The quiet confidence of proven ability. When someone knows they have built something valuable, they do not need constant approval. Their confidence comes from evidence. They have tested themselves. They have overcome difficulties. They know their ability because they have experienced in the process. This creates a different type of confidence, not arrogance, not loudness, but certainty. The danger of chasing recognition first. Many people make the mistake of pursuing attention before developing ability. They want followers before expertise, fame before contribution, praise before achievement. But attention without substance is fragile. The moment the attention disappears, nothing remains. The stronger path is build something valuable, develop a skill, create results, allow recognition to follow. The final lesson of this chapter: the world may ignore talent temporarily, but it struggles to ignore mastery permanently. A person can hide behind words for some time, but reality eventually reveals itself. The performer performs, the creator creates, the builder builds, the innovator innovates, the master masters, and eventually the world notices. Because true excellence carries a unique quality. It does not need to chase attention. It creates gravity. People are naturally drawn toward what is rare, valuable, and difficult to achieve. The greatest people in history did not become unforgettable because they convinced everyone they were great. They became unforgettable because they created something the world could not forget. Asterisk, their talent became their testimony. Chapter 9: Talent in Different Worlds. The universal language of excellence. Talent is one of the few forces in human life that crosses every boundary. It does not belong to one profession. It does not belong to one country. It does not belong to one generation. The same principle appears everywhere. A person becomes extraordinary when their ability is developed to a level where the world cannot ignore it. The field may change. The language may change. The tools may change, but excellence remains recognizable. Sports. When performance removes debate, sports provide one of the clearest examples because performance is visible. An athlete cannot rely only on words. The result is displayed publicly. The clock records, the scoreboard records. The competition reveals reality. Lionel Messi. When creativity becomes evidence, Messi represents a powerful example of talent becoming visible. His greatness is not based on what he says about himself. It is seen through his control, his vision, his decision-making, his creativity, his consistency. A person who never watched an interview can still understand his ability by watching his work. The performance communicates. Michael Jordan. When mentality elevates talent, Jordan demonstrates another dimension. Talent alone does not explain greatness. Many athletes possess physical ability. Few develop the mentality required to dominate. His greatness came from discipline, competitiveness, preparation, refusal to accept mediocrity. His achievements became his introduction. Usain Bolt. The language of results. Bolt did not need to explain that he was fast. The stopwatch answered. The records answered. The performance answered. Some abilities are so clear that words become unnecessary. Music. When creativity speaks emotion, music demonstrates a different type of talent. There is no scoreboard, no measurement like a race time. The evidence appears through emotional impact. A great musician communicates something that people feel. Beethoven, a voice beyond time. Beethoven's music survived centuries because it contained something deeper than technical skill. It carried emotion, complexity, human experience. His compositions became his voice long after he was gone. Michael Jackson, innovation beyond performance. Michael Jackson's influence came not only from singing, it came from combining music, performance, choreography, visual storytelling. He changed expectations of what entertainment could become. His work created the argument. Science. When truth becomes the evidence, science provides perhaps the strongest example of talent speaking through results. A scientist cannot simply claim, "I am correct." Reality must confirm the work. Albert Einstein. Ideas that changed understanding. Einstein's reputation was built through ideas that transformed how humanity understood the universe. His influence came from contribution, not self-promotion. The theories became stronger than the person. Marie Curie. Discovery through persistence. Marie Curie's achievements demonstrate another aspect of excellence. Great discoveries often require patience, courage, dedication. Her contribution became her legacy. Business. When creation becomes the proof, business reveals talent through building. Many people have ideas. Far fewer can transform ideas into valuable systems. The entrepreneur's ability becomes visible through execution. Steve Jobs. Turning vision into reality. Steve Jobs understood a simple principle. The product itself must communicate. A company can make promises, but the customer experience reveals the truth. Apple's influence came from combining design, technology, simplicity, user experience. The creation became the advertisement. Warren Buffett. The power of consistency. Buffett's reputation was not built through dramatic speeches. It was built through decades of decisions. His investment philosophy demonstrated patience, discipline, rational thinking. Consistency created trust. Leadership. When character becomes talent, talent is not only technical ability. Leadership itself is a form of human excellence. A leader's ability appears when facing difficult circumstances. Nelson Mandela. Strength through character. Mandela's influence came from qualities that cannot be manufactured. Resilience, patience, emotional control, vision. His actions created moral authority. Winston Churchill. Words supported by courage. Churchill demonstrates an important balance. Words can be powerful, but they become powerful when supported by character. His speeches mattered because they came during a period of national struggle. His courage gave his words weight. Everyday excellence. The forgotten masters. One mistake people make is believing talent only belongs to famous people. It does not. There are millions of masters who may never become globally known. A carpenter who creates exceptional work. A mechanic who understands machines deeply. A teacher who transforms students' lives. A farmer who masters the land. A builder who creates structures with precision. These people demonstrate the same principle. Skill creates respect. The common pattern across all fields, whether someone is a footballer, scientist, artist, entrepreneur, or craftsman, the journey follows the same path. 1. Attraction. They discover something they are drawn toward. 2. Development. They build knowledge and skill. 3. Discipline. They continue despite difficulty. 4. Mastery. They reach a level of exceptional ability. 5. Contribution. Their ability creates value for others. Why excellence is universally recognized. Humans may disagree about many things. Culture. politics, beliefs, opinions. But excellence has a unique power. People recognize a beautiful performance, a brilliant solution, a remarkable creation, extraordinary skill. Even across different cultures, mastery is respected. The deeper lesson: a person's profession does not determine whether they can achieve greatness. The principle remains the same. Do something with enough dedication that your ability becomes undeniable. You do not need everyone to know your name. You need your work to carry value. Because talent is a language understood by everyone. A great performance does not need translation. A great invention does not need explanation. A great creation does not need endless defense. When ability reaches its highest level, the work introduces the person before the person introduces themselves. Chapter 10: Make Your Talent Speak. The responsibility of potential. Throughout this journey, we have explored the lives of extraordinary people. Athletes who changed the meaning of performance. Artists who created beauty that survived generations. Scientists who expanded human understanding. Entrepreneurs who transformed ideas into reality. Leaders whose actions shaped history. Although their fields were different, they shared one powerful truth. They did not become remarkable because they talked about what they could do. They became remarkable because they developed what they could do. Their talent became their voice. Every human being possesses something unique. A different combination of experiences, abilities, interests, perspectives, strengths, but potential has one limitation. Potential is invisible until it is developed. A person may have a great idea, but an idea that is never built changes nothing. A person may have a beautiful voice, but a voice that is never trained remains hidden. A person may have leadership ability, but leadership that is never practiced remains only possibility. The difference between potential and achievement: potential is a promise. Achievement is proof. Potential says, I could become something. Achievement says, I have built something. The world cannot respond to invisible ability. It responds to contribution. This is why the responsibility of talent is development. A gift is not the final reward. A gift is a responsibility. If someone discovers they have an ability, the question changes. It is no longer, am I talented? The question becomes, what am I willing to do with this ability? Discover your unique strength. The first step is awareness. A person must understand themselves. What naturally attracts your attention? What problems do you enjoy solving? What activities make you lose track of time? What skills do people consistently recognize in you? These questions do not automatically reveal your destiny, but they provide clues. Many people spend their lives developing weaknesses while ignoring their natural strengths. They try to become copies of others, but greatness rarely comes from imitation. It comes from discovering what makes you unique and developing it deeply. Develop relentlessly. Talent is only the starting point. The person who becomes exceptional is the person who continues improving. They read, they practice, they seek feedback, they learn from failure. They surround themselves with people who challenge them. They understand that mastery is a lifelong process. Robert Greene's concept of mastery teaches that the greatest individuals remain students. They never reach a point where they believe, I know everything. They maintain curiosity. They continue exploring, build discipline. The world is full of people with dreams. It has fewer people with discipline. Dreams require action. Talent requires structure. A person cannot rely on motivation alone. Motivation changes. Discipline remains. The talented person asks, do I feel like doing this today? The disciplined person asks, is this necessary for my growth? That difference determines outcomes. Create something valuable. Talent becomes meaningful when it serves something beyond yourself. A skill becomes powerful when it creates value. The musician creates emotion. The scientist creates knowledge. The entrepreneur creates solutions. The teacher creates understanding. The builder creates structures. The leader creates direction. The question is not only, what am I good at? The deeper question is, how can what I am good at help others? Because contribution transforms talent into significance. Stop explaining. Start building. One of the greatest lessons from history is this: do not spend your entire life defending your potential. Develop it. The person who constantly says, one day I will become great, is still waiting. The person who quietly works every day is already becoming. The world eventually notices results, not promises, not intentions, not excuses, results. The final transformation, the journey of talent, can be summarized in 6 stages. Stage 1, potential, something inside you exists, a possibility waiting to be discovered. Stage 2, practice, you develop the ability. You move from interest to skill. Stage 3, discipline, you continue when difficulty appears. You build consistency. Stage 4, mastery, your ability becomes refined. Your performance becomes exceptional. Stage 5, contribution, your skill creates value beyond yourself. Stage 6, legacy, your work continues influencing others. The final lesson from history. The greatest people were not remembered because they were born with talent. They were remembered because they respected their talent enough to develop it. They understood. A gift ignored becomes wasted potential. A gift developed becomes ability. An ability used becomes contribution. A contribution repeated becomes legacy. The world does not need more people announcing what they could become. The world needs people willing to quietly build themselves. Because eventually, the musician's performance will speak. The scientist's discovery will speak. The athlete's achievements will speak. The creator's work will speak. The builder's results will speak. And when your ability becomes undeniable, you no longer need to convince people of your worth. You no longer need to chase recognition. You no longer need to explain yourself. Because the greatest introduction a person can have is not their name. It is their work. Talent speaks. Discipline gives it a voice. Mastery gives it power. Contribution gives it meaning. And excellence makes it unforgettable.